read this headline, "Don't believe the hype, single women aren't as happy as they seem," my first thought was, what hype? What is this story about single women being happy and fulfilled and living their best lives? That doesn't seem to me to be the dominant narrative in our culture. I thought the general consensus was that single women are miserable and lonely with their cats and just waiting to be rescued. So I was a bit baffled, and then I thought, actually, I have seen a few articles talking about the positive aspects of being single, written by middle-aged women and commenting on their own experiences, saying, actually, middle-aged women are fine. So within that context, perhaps in a small bubble of the internet, of that corner of the internet, you might be forgiven for thinking that there is a hype about single women being fine, actually. The other articles I've seen are written by single women, anecdotal first-person accounts of their lives and experiences. Is this similar, offering a counterexample? Looking at the author's name, Raphael, probably not that kind of article, no. So what sort of an article is this? Let's have a quick look through, and if I scroll down here, I see a few references in this author and date style, which is typically used in academic articles reporting scientific research. So this looks like maybe it's a report of academic research. And while this does smack a bit of mansplaining, in general, as a rule of thumb, scientific research has some value that anecdotes don't. So it might be worth looking a little bit more closely. And looking at this article, overall, the shape of it looks like a report of research. It mentions recent research in the first section, elaborates a bit more in the second, gives a bit more detail in the third section, and finishes in the final section of conclusion type statements. So yeah, it looks like it's probably an article reporting on a single recent study. It's not terribly good, to be honest. Those author date citations that I mentioned earlier, you really ought to have the full references listed at the bottom to give details of where to find those papers if you're using that style. And that concluding section at the end ought to just summarise what's gone before and draw conclusions, whereas this one adds additional information. So it's not terribly good, but maybe it's based on an interesting article. So it would be interesting to go and have a look at the original research on which this is based. This article doesn't give a clear reference to where they got the research from, but there is a reference here in the second section to a recent study conducted by the Pew Research Centre. So I'd be willing to bet that that's where the original research came from. So let's go and have a look at that and see if we can find it. Looking at the Pew Research Centre website, we can see reports of research on a number of topical areas. And if we look at their full list of research topics, we'll see this is a huge list of different areas of research. And indeed, if we scroll through, we find that this list includes both marriage and divorce, and down the bottom here, happiness and life satisfaction. So both the topics mentioned in the article are covered, and we're looking for a study which is the intersection of these two areas. Looking, for example, at the happiness and life satisfaction, we see that there are 87 results here, which is quite a lot to look through, but we can refine them. And we can narrow it down in a couple of ways. First of all, I'm going to focus in on a range of years. Now, those author date citations, the latest date of those mentioned in that article was 2017. So we can restrict our range to only things since then. It did refer to recent research, but that's a bit vague. Let's take it back to 2017. recent research is a bit vague, we can be generous and extend it back to that and bring that up to the current year. Please select. Can you do that? There we go. So we've narrowed the selection down to a restricted range of dates, recent-ish, and secondly, we can choose different formats. So, for example, we probably don't want a short read or a presentation. The article referred to quite a number of different research findings, so we can reasonably expect that we're looking for a full report. So I'm going to select reports and refine that. And that brings it down to 5 results. Doing the same in the marriage and divorce section gives me 10. So I'd expect to find the article that I'm looking for appearing on both lists because it's the intersection of those two. In fact, it doesn't, which is a bit odd, but maybe the results we're talking about weren't the main focus of the article. I had a closer look at the more promising sounding reports on this list that might contain the information we're looking for and studied them in some detail. I won't take you through that, but I did look at those on both lists. And what I was searching for was life satisfaction reports analysed by marital status. And I couldn't find anything that contained those results. And I did really look quite closely at quite a few of these reports. I just didn't find the information I was looking for, which is a bit strange. If it's recent research by the Pew Research Centre, it should be there. So I thought, well, there were some other citations, those author date citations that I've already mentioned. Maybe I could have a look at those. So I went to Google Scholar, and that gives you the option to search by author date, and I looked up all 4 of those, and there were rather more results to look through there, but scanning through the titles I could look for anything that looked likely, and I couldn't find anything there either. Now, these search methods might miss things, but particularly specifying recent research by the Pew Research Centre, this is very well organised, well catalogued information that should make it quite easy to find what I'm looking for, and I looked pretty carefully, and it's just not there. I think I'm quite good at finding this stuff, and I don't think this exists at all. I think he's made it up. And I'm outraged. Absolutely outraged by this. And I confess there may be an element of injured pride in there. I mean, I do believe I can tell what kind of material I'm looking at online, and this article did look to me like a report of recent scientific research, statements that sounded plausible, researchers believe, references. So it very much looked like an account of recent research written in a sort of easy to digest form. So yeah, I was taken in, and yes, that does make me more angry than I might have been otherwise, but even so, people shouldn't just lie. I mean, I know we know not to take things at face value. I know that author bias can creep in, either by accident or because they've got an agenda to push. They might just misunderstand the results they're reporting. There are all sorts of reasons why what you read might not be quite what it claims to be. But simply making stuff up is a step beyond. It's just not on. So yeah, I'm outraged. But also, the next question then is why? Well, you probably don't have to think terribly hard to figure out why he might have done this. And in fact, if we look at his comments, he's quite open about why he's doing this in the comments section. In response to a comment asking for him to cite sources, which, as I've mentioned, he didn't really do terribly well, he replies, "Thanks for reading and commenting. It helps with the algorithm." So, straightforwardly, he wrote this to get attention. He cares about the performance metrics on this platform, and truth be damned.